Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study of paper 49, and this is the continuation of our study on UFOs, too. It'll go probably one, maybe two more sessions. We're going to get all the way through 49, then we're going to go back to paper 16 again. So that's what we're doing. We're on 49, paragraph 2. And this is, we're at where it says the elemental types. This is 215. But before we go on, I want to review the types of beings one more time, because this is the things we're talking about tonight. I think I went back up too far. No, I went down too far. Here we go. This is the 7 types, they tell us, of types of beings, humans, in the universes. And that's the atmospheric types, the elemental types, the gravity types, the temperature types, the electric types, the energizing types, and the unnamed types. Now remember, each one of these types have multiple groups underneath them. So these are not just all 7. You know, there's sub sections under each one of these. And last time we got through the very first one. So we're going to go back up here to elemental types. I can find it again here. There we go. Elemental types. And dear, would you start us out tonight?
Okay.
Unmute.
Good, I'm sorry. 2, the elemental types. These differentiations have to do with the relation of mortals to water, air, and land. And there are 4 distinct species of intelligent life, as they are related to these habitats. The Urantia races are of the land order.
Okay, so the elemental types. What do they mean when they say elemental types? They're talking about the 4 elements, right? Okay, water, air, land, and apparently there's another one, which they don't mention here, right? And then there's 4 distinct species of intelligent life in these, okay? And we're part of the land order, right? Because why? We habitate land, okay? But that means that there's beings that habitate what? Water. And there's also beings that habitate air, right? All right. And there's probably a species of beings that habitate what?
Fire?
Underneath the land, like cave dwellers and things like that. Their whole life may be in caves because of the bombardment of meteors and things like that. Right?
So subterranean.
So subterranean. Right. Okay. I'm getting feedback from somebody. Letch, I think I'm getting feedback for you. Would you mute till you're ready to read?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Huh? No,
Can you hear me?
No, I'm going to mute you until I'm ready for you to read. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. All right, here we go. It's getting feedback from some reason. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Jane, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. It is quite impossible for you to envisage the environment which prevails during the early ages of some worlds. These unusual conditions make it necessary for the evolving animal life to remain in its marine nursery habitat for longer periods than on those planets which very early provide a hospitable land and atmosphere environment. Conversely, on some worlds of the super breathers, when the planet is not too large, it is sometimes expedient to provide for a mortal type which can readily negotiate atmospheric passage. These air navigators sometimes intervene between the water and land groups, and they always live in a measure upon the
That's all.
upon the grounds, eventually evolving into land dwellers. But on some worlds, for ages, they continue to fly even after they have become land type beings.
So there are mortals out there that fly, basically. Okay. So they have evolved from some sort of creature that's able to negotiate the atmosphere. Okay. So we have to assume they must have some sort of physical differences between us than us so that they can either glide or something in the air, right? Like a bat or something along that order. And it talks about this here a little bit more down the thing. But it's interesting that even these mortal types eventually work into land dwellers after a period of time. So they actually end up living on the land, but they can still, many of them can still fly around in the atmosphere. Wouldn't that be kind of handy? You know,
That'd be nice to avoid the traffic.
that's right. Just fly to work every morning. Right?
There you go.
And if somebody tells you to go fly, you could really do it, couldn't you? Yeah, we think the angels are flying. Now, the angels, it's interesting. The angels, down through history, because of the Bible, we think of angels of having wings, don't we? But in reality, angels don't have wings and they can still fly, right? What do they have? They have friction shields. They actually have these things that come down and work to protect them and their occupants when they are flying someone around, which would be kind of handy to have, wouldn't it? I guess. Well, I went too far again. Let me see if I can get this. I'm having mouse trouble today, y'all.
Roger,
Yeah.
but that's just one class of
That's
angel.
That's just one
The
class of angels.
transport.
The transport seraphim, right?
Right.
The other types of angels don't have wings either, do they, Rodney? If
So
you
how
think
do they
about it.
get around?
They fly on their own initiative. You know, don't forget when human beings fuse with their adjuster, if you get to that point in this lifetime, it states, and this is very important that we understand this, that before they are what they call are invested in their Morantia investiture, they can fly to the center, to the capital of our local universe. All right. So if you fuse with your adjuster, you can immediately fly to on your own accord. You don't need a guardian angel or any of that. You can immediately fly to the universe capital, the local universe capital, and stand before whom? Jesus. And if you do that, you'll hear the "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And then you'll leave from there and go to the first mansion world to get your Morantia body. Okay. I always thought that was quite interesting that if you fuse, we can actually fly to the universe capital. Okay, so if that's possible as a fused being with your adjuster, there are probably many, many types of beings that can negotiate the atmosphere without wings. Okay, it's not necessary. Now, how they do that, your guess is as good as mine. They must be endowed with some sort of anti-gravity possibilities, if you think about it, right? And it's kind of interesting if you think about it. You know, that video I sent out to you, they talk about these vehicles that they've reversed engineered in this country that do what? Defy gravity already, right? So they have lift off the planet, some sort of defying of the gravity system of our planet.
Do
Now,
I get audio?
pardon me? So they can actually lift these vehicles off the planet on their own accord. So, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. How do you get audio? You should be, you're not muted. Hang on, Gary, let me see if I can find him. I'm not used to not having my mouse. You're not muted on my end, Gary. You should, if you go down to the left-hand side where see the little microphone, you should be able to unmute if you're muted. I don't show you that you're muted though. Can you hear me, Gary? Just shake your head. I don't think he hears me. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Nope, I can't do anything from this end. You'll have to, Gary, if you can hear me, wave your hand. He can't hear me. I can't help him if he can't hear me. Let me see if I can text him. Two, screen, left, turn, oops, yeah, I got it. Let's see if that'll work. Okay. So let's keep moving. I lost my train of thought completely now. Where are we at?
You were talking about anti-gravity.
Oh, anti-gravity. Yeah. So we have reverse engineered these ships from other planets, right? And we have discovered that by reverse engineering them, they use a coil much like, it's almost exactly like the Tesla coil, okay, inside the ship. And by creating this large amount of magnetic field, they figured out how to create anti-gravity so they can create lift with these vehicles.
To levitate.
To levitate, literally. They can also control them. All right, so they've discovered that the vehicles that they've gotten from these UFOs actually have a headset where the aliens can control the vehicle both through telepathy and their fingers on a control board. So, which is pretty interesting. And if you think about it, back in the 70s, I believe it was, both Russia and the United States was experimenting with a helmet where the pilots could do the same thing. They could control the jets with the telepathy, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. So we're coming a long way in a short period of time. All right, let's go on to the next paragraph. Let's see. Lesh, can you unmute for me and read the next one? You know how to unmute?
Okay.
Okay, great. All right.
It is quite impossible for you to envisage the environment which prevails during the early ages of some worlds. These unusual conditions make it necessary for the evolving animal life to remain.
We just read that.
Oh, Jane just read. Go down to the next one. I'm sorry.
Oh, the next one. Sorry.
Hang on. Let me move the screen up a little bit for you. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It is both amazing and amusing to observe the early civilization of a primitive race of human beings taking shape. In one case in the air and treetops, and in another amidst the shallow waters of the sheltered tropic basins, as well as on the bottom, sides, and shores of these marine gardens of the dawn races of such extraordinary spheres. Even on Urantia, there was a long age during which primitive man preserved himself and advanced his primitive civilization by living, for the most part, in the treetops, as did his earlier arboreal ancestors. And on Urantia, you still have a group of diminutive mammals the bat family, that are air navigators, and your seals and whales of marine habitat are also of the mammalian order.
There's a bunch of stuff in this paragraph. All right, let's take the first part of it. Okay, talking about our early civilization as it was taking shape on Earth, right? We preserved ourselves, but by doing what? Getting in the tops of the trees. That's the way that early man survived, just like monkeys, right? Because there were too many animals that would eat you if you stayed on the ground at night, right? So we lived in the treetop dwellings. But the rest of that sentence really blows you away, right? It also talks in another, amidst the shallow waters of the sheltered tropic basins, as well as the bottom, sides, and shores of these marine gardens of the dawn and early race of such extraordinary spheres. So what are they telling us here? They're telling that some humans lived in the water. Okay, that's what they're talking about. They lived on the bottoms of these shallow basins, they lived on the sides, and then they migrated to the shores over time. So they actually existed what? In the water, right? And that's how they protected themselves. So there is a type of being that would be what? Considered a water type human, right? Right? Okay. Gives a whole new meaning to mermaids, doesn't it? Right?
Well, they must have gills.
They must have gills. You remember what was that movie Kevin Costner? Waterworld.
Yeah, water.
Yeah,
Remember in
Waterworld.
Waterworld, he had gills behind his ears.
Mhm.
Remember that?
Yeah, how about
Mhm.
the creature from the Black Lagoon?
Creature from the Black Lagoon, right? All right. All right.
You know,
And
there's I saw a video of a submersible went way down into the ocean,
uh-huh.
and an actual humanoid type mermaid, wasn't very beautiful, trust me, but swam by the camera.
Really?
I mean,
That's interesting.
way
you know,
down there.
Yeah,
Huh?
manatees have been mistaken for mermaids for years, right? I
No,
swam
this
with the
was
manatees. This is much
this was
prettier
like
than
a
that.
mile down or a half mile down.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
This was nothing, no manatee thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, it was not pretty. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. By any shape. Huh? Well, also in this paragraph, it talks about the bat family as air navigators. So since bats are mammals, whales are mammals, seals are mammals, any of those groups of creatures could have developed into what? Humans. You think about it, right? If they'd have been first to develop that concept of God, then on this planet, then it would have been a whale or a seal or a bat that would be the humans. You see that? Because they're of the mammalian order. In other words, they're air breathing. They have their baby singly, right? And they nurture their young just like we do. All right. So
Hey, how about the walking catfish?
the walking catfish might be. I don't know if that's a mammal or not, though.
But it can come out and breathe on above the ground
On
for a while.
land. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny, Bill, you say that. When I was growing up in Indiana, my grandfather came home one night, with a bunch of fish and stuff, and he swore that he had a fish crawl up on land and bark at him like a dog. It scared him to death. I guess that
Didn't meow at him?
Didn't meow and barked at him like a dog, he says. So you never know. Now, I don't know if he's pulling their legs or not, but you just never know. All right, let's go on to the next one.
can I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
What if these other mammals, like whales or bats or whatever, evolved currently to have a belief in God, etc.
Well, Gary, they say that once one type of animal on a planet, once one develops to that point, that the life carriers will not allow any other species to develop to that point.
Oh, first come, first serve.
First come, first served, and that's the way it works. So if the bats would have beat us to the draw, we would have all been bats, right? If not, once one type of animal develops to that point, they do not allow the others to develop any further to do that. So
We certainly have a lot of love for these animals because when I
Yeah.
lived in Bradenton in Florida, I used to go over to the aquarium over there and pet the manatees. I mean, and they were just very, very loving. And but a lot of the
oh yeah, the porpoises are
yeah.
just, I mean, it's amazing that the porpoises don't talk to us, honest to God, you know. You would think they could, the way they communicate. So, and maybe they're talking in their talk, but they're not, they haven't developed that awareness of God. That's what makes them different.
You know, I had an experience in the ocean. I was taking a sailing course and we were doing man overboard drills.
Mm-hmm.
We took a fender or buoy, put a bucket on it so it'd hold it up all right, like a human,
Mm-hmm.
threw it overboard, did the maneuver for man overboard.
Right.
And in the procedure, you have to keep your eye on the person. It's amazing how easy you can lose a person in the ocean
Yeah.
and not be very far away. I mean, it's phenomenally easy.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're coming back to rescue this bucket.
Yeah.
And 3 porpoises was around the bucket trying to keep it up.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
I don't doubt it whatsoever. When I'll never forget, I had a couple students. We were out off of Fort Lauderdale on a dive boat, and one of the ladies that went with us was not a diver, so she stayed on the boat. And we all went in and we were doing training exercises and stuff. And there was me, another instructor, and 2 other people. Well, we got out there, and when we got done, we came back up to the surface and the boat was nowhere to be found. Okay. So I thought, well, we're lost, you know. And then way off, you could see the waves coming up and down way off. And it must have been a half a mile from us. I could see the boat pop up every now and then. And I had these rescue things I always carried with my dive gear that you blew up, and they were about 8 foot long and it was orange. So I blew this thing up and started waving it around, and I waved it and waved it and waved it. And the other dive instructor with me had a whistle, and he blew his whistle and blew his whistle and blew his whistle. And it seemed like forever they didn't come get us. And finally, the guy, it's almost like he was asleep, and he woke back up. And so he came to get us, and I was so mad because I had these 2 new students in the water with me and everything. And their first dive out, they get lost, you know. So I said, what's going on? He says, well, I got talking to this lady. So the lady that came with us distracted the captain of the boat and was more interested in flirting with her than he was watching the divers. You know? So I learned a valuable lesson not to ever take anybody with me that wasn't getting in the water. So anyway, so you just never know. Okay.
Did you hire another captain next time?
We did not go back to that boat. Let me put it that way. Not again. Didn't want to get lost in the sea. When you're out there, and there's no land in sight, and there's nothing but you and a couple students, and there's no boats to be seen anywhere. It's a pretty eerie feeling. You know? It really is.
I learned. I was a scuba diver also. I'm certified YMCA. And I remember we went down off of Key Largo.
Yeah.
For our ocean dive.
Yeah, that's a pretty area to dive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is.
My daughter was in Cebu with her husband, and they went out, and she was doing scuba diving, and they were doing serious diving. And she was there waving her arm because she was scared, and it took a long time for them to
Yeah.
actually see her. She never went out after that.
Yeah, it's a strange feeling to be lost in the
It is.
ocean.
Oh, yeah.
It's frightening. She was petrified.
Okay, let's go on to the next one, Insitania. I don't even remember who's up next. No, I think it's Rodney. Rodney,
right.
you want to take the next one?
Insitania, of the elemental types, 7% are water, 10% are air, 70% land, and 13% combined land and air types. But these modifications of early intelligent creatures are neither human fishes nor human birds. They are of the human and pre-human types, neither superfishes nor glorified birds, but distinctly mortal.
So 7% of the planets out there are populated by water dwellers. That's a lot if you think about it, right? 10% are air dwellers, fly around in the air. So 10% of the mortals in our
Not right
local
now, no,
universe
thank you.
are, fly around in the air, and only 70% are land. 13% is a combination of the two, land and air. So, we really, I guess, are fortunate we are land dwellers because we're part of the 70%, but it would be nice to be able to fly, wouldn't it? I mean, it really would be. All right.
In North Carolina, they
Sweetie, you're muted. Yeah.
Oh, okay. In North Carolina, there have been several sightings of a flying person that resembles a bat, and it sometimes swoops down on people, and it's happened quite a few times.
You never know what's out there, right?
You never know if he came through some other source, or arrived in,
Yeah, he could have been an alien come
Could have
to
been an
our
alien,
planet
right?
to visit,
Yeah.
We just
And you
don't
ran
know.
into Batman?
Batman. Here
Well,
you
it probably would have been okay if it was Batman, but.
All right, Bill, would you take the next one?
Sure. The gravity types, 3. By modification of creative design, intelligent beings are so constructed that they can freely function on spheres both smaller and larger than Urantia, thus being in measure accommodated to the gravity of those planets which are not of ideal size and density.
So they're modified for the type of gravity of that planet, right? Now, as we read through this, y'all keep in mind how we started this, right? We started talking about UFOs and all the other possibilities of beings inhabiting the universes, right? So what they're explaining to us here in these different types is actual human beings that are different from us, that are modified to live on these other planets, okay, because of the way they are.
Roger, what I get out of it is that it just so happens the size of our planet must be optimal.
It is, yeah. And it sounds like it because they made that reference multiple times in the book, haven't they, Rodney? If you think about it. In other words, even the moons around some of these planets are the same size as our planet, so that makes them optimal for inhabitability, right? All right. Okay, Gary, would you take the next one?
Various planetary types of mortals vary in height. The average in Nebadon being, I can't see that word, under 7 feet. A trifle under 7 feet.
Yeah.
Some of the larger worlds are populated with beings who are only about 2.5 feet in height. Mortal stature ranges from ranges from here on up through the average height on the average sized planet to around 10 feet on the smaller inhabited spheres. In Santania, there is only one something under 4 feet in
Race,
height.
one
Huh?
race, one race.
One race under 4 feet.
Right.
20% of the Santania inhabited worlds are peopled with mortals of the modified gravity type, occupying the larger and the smaller planets.
Okay, I want to bring something up on this one too. Notice here it says there's only one, let me find it here. One race that's under 4 feet. You see that?
In
And
Satania. Yeah.
in Satania, one race under 4 feet in height. If that's the case, the one race that's under 4 foot are what? The ones that they discovered in these UFOs, right? So they are the only race that height. So if they've had what in the world was that? If they've recovered bodies from multiple ships that are under 4 feet, they all come from what? The same planet, right? Think about that.
Now, who knows where that
planet
craft
is.
might have came from?
That's right. Now,
might have come outside of Titania.
Yeah, well, interesting point of that. And if y'all watch those videos, both of those videos, you'll probably remember, I think it was in those videos, I've watched so many lately, they also recovered another type of being in one of the craft that was taller and spindlier, okay, than the 4 foot ones. So it makes you wonder if that particular one came from a different planet with them, right? Not the tall white ones. There was one in one of the recovered UFOs. They actually found a taller one that was about 6 foot tall.
That taller one, I think, was in that picture of 1922.
Yeah, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. So, so they're out there. Other types of beings are out there. One thing's for sure, we're not a very friendly planet to get caught on, right? To crash on, because what do we want to do? As soon as we find these beings, we want to dissect them and all this other stuff, right? So it wouldn't be good to visit here if you can't get away. Not a good idea at all, right? Okay, let's go on. Diane, would you take the next one, please? Unmute, dear. We're the various planet types. And is that no? The next one, the temperature types.
The temperature types. 4. The temperature types.
4. The temperature types. It is possible to create living beings who can withstand temperatures both much higher and much lower than the life range of the Urantia races. There are 5 distinct orders of beings, as they are classified with reference to heat-regulated mechanisms. In this scale, the Urantia races are number 3. 30% of Satania worlds are peopled with races of modified temperature types. 12% belong to the higher temperature ranges, 18% to the lower, as compared with Urantians, who function in the mid-temperature group.
Okay, it's really interesting how they labor all this information to us. In other words, they break it down in great detail. So, it's kind of strange that anyone would even conceive that this is not true, because they break it down in such detail about the temperature types, the heat regulation, the breathing, everything of the different planets, right? And some of it, they break it down. Wait till 2 more paragraphs. They really break that down. Okay, let's go on to the electric types. Yeah, Jane, would you take that one, please? You're muted, Jane. There we go.
Sorry.
That's all right.
5, the electric types. The electric, magnetic, and electronic behavior of the worlds varies greatly. There are 10 designs of mortal life, variously fashioned to withstand the differential energy of the spheres. These 10 varieties also react in slightly different ways to the chemical rays of ordinary sunlight. But these slight physical variations in no way affect the intellectual or the spiritual life.
Okay, now what they talk about this electrical magnetic stuff, right? There are some types of beings that can get their energy directly from the sun. That's what they're telling us here. Okay, so there's a lot of variations. There's 10 different variations of how we get energy. All right, if you think about it, how do we get energy from the sun? Not directly, do we? We eat the vegetables that grow in the garden, right? How do the vegetables get energy? They get it from the sun, right? So that energy is converted into energy for the vegetables to grow. And then we eat the vegetables, and that energy from the sun breaks down. And that's how we get energy from the sun. Makes sense?
We also get vitamin D from
vitamin D directly from the sun.
That's what I was about to say.
That's right. That's right. But most of our nutrition comes from our food, right? Now, think about it this way. Not only the vegetables, but the animals we eat, it's the same thing. They have broken down, they have eaten the vegetables, they have broken it down, and then we eat them, which is not a good idea, but we eat them and we get energy from them, don't we? We steal the energy from the process of breaking down the meat. Okay, so this is our way that we are one of the electric types also, right? Because we get energy from the sun. All right, now let's go down to the next paragraph and we'll see how that breaks down. Lech, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. Of the electric groupings of mortal life, almost 23% belong to class number 4, the Urantia type of existence. These types are distributed as follows. Number 1, 1%. Number 2, 2%. Number 3, 5%. Number 4, 23%. Number 5, 27%. Number 6, 24%. Number 7, 8%. Number 8, 5%. Number 9, 3%. Number 10, 2% in whole percentages.
Okay, so what are they talking about all these different percentages? This is the 10 designations of mortal life that breaks down the electrical system and gets energy from the sun 10 different ways. Okay, that's what they're talking about here. So we belong to the area that's 23%, which is number 4. We are the Urantia type existence, right? The rest of them breaks down energy in different ways than we do. Okay, so only 1/4 or less than 1/4 of all the human beings in our universe is what breaks it down like we do. The rest of them do it totally different. Okay.
So
now,
it just means the rest are just strange.
The rest are just strange. Why is this important though? I'll tell you why it's important. When we start interacting, when the quarantine's lifted and we start interacting regularly with beings from other worlds, okay, the way they break down energy may be totally different from us. And we need to know that before they come here, okay? A good example of that is what? You remember in that video I sent y'all, they talked about one of the aliens lasted from 1947 to 1952. So he was on this planet living for 5 years. So he had to break down energy somehow to survive, right? Why is this important? Because if we get a person from another world who gets stranded on this planet, we need to do everything humanly possible that they have the environment so they can break down energy to survive the way they need to, right? can't assume they're going to be just like us, right?
Yeah, he had a problem trying to communicate with people, and he only found one person that was able to communicate with them.
That's right. That's right. So these sort of things become very important, don't they? All right. Let's see. Rodney, would you take the next one?
6, the energizing type S.
No, that's types, Rodney. That there's extra space got stuck in there somehow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, 6, the energizing types. Not all worlds are alike in the manner of taking in energy. Not all inhabited worlds have an atmospheric ocean suited to respiratory exchange of gases, such as is present on Urantia. During the earlier and the later stages of many planets, beings of your present order could not exist. And when the respiratory factors of a planet are very high or very low, but when all other prerequisites to intelligent life are adequate, the life carriers often establish on such worlds a modified form of mortal existence. Beings who are competent to affect their life process exchanges directly by means of light energy. And the first 10 power transmutations of the master physical controllers.
In other words, they can get energy from direct light, right? Also, think about this. How do you think the midwayers stay alive, right? The midwayers stay alive through the probably the same method of power transmission from the master physical controllers. They probably also can absorb light energy. All right. So would they have to eat? No, they wouldn't. Okay. That's how they live indefinitely. They don't have to worry about food and breaking down food and all that stuff, just like we will have be able to do when we're on the higher Urantia levels. Okay, we will no longer need even Urantia food. Eventually, we will get so we can live off of this light energy from the master physical controllers, or the energy of the universe, right?
Sort of like photosynthesis, huh?
Photosynthesis, you got it, right on the money. All right, Bill, would you take the next one, please?
Sure. There are 6 differing types of animal and mortal nutrition. The sub-breathers employ the first type of nutrition, the marine dwellers the second, the mid-breathers the third, as on Urantia. The super-breathers employ the fourth type of energy intake, while the non-breathers utilize the fifth order of nutrition and energy. The 6th technique of energizing is limited only to the midway creatures.
There you go.
There's your answer.
There's your answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they get their energy from a different source than we do, right? So they stay alive.
But they don't tell what the different types of energy.
No, they don't.
Absorb.
They don't go into it that deep, do they? No.
No.
All right. Which is probably a good thing, because if they did, there'd be some idiot out there that would try to take advantage of the midwayers, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, you think about it. Human beings are not very nice sometimes. Okay. Let's go on. 7. Gary, would you take the next one?
7, the unnamed types. There are numerous additional physical variations in planetary life, but all of these differences are wholly matters of anatomical modifications, psychologic differentiations,
Physiologic.
physiological different. I can't say that word.
Differentiation.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a tough one.
And electrochemical adjustment. Such distinctions do not concern the intellectual or spiritual life.
So even though that they're different, it doesn't change their brains or their spirits.
So we're gonna love.
Right? So we're going to love them just like everybody else, right? Okay. Worlds of the non-breathers. Diane, would you take the first one there?
3. Worlds of the non-breathers. The majority of inhabited planets are peopled with the breathing type of intelligent beings. But there are also orders of mortals who are able to live on worlds with little or no air. Of the Orvanton inhabited worlds, this type amounts to less than 7%. In Nebadon, this percentage is less than 3. In all Satania, there are only 9 such worlds.
Shoot. Only 9 worlds are worlds that air is not necessary, right? All right. They breathe very little or no air whatsoever. All right. So most of them are inhabited by peoples that breathe air, right? And then when we get to the mansion worlds, we know we'll be breathing 3 gases, right? Now, interesting thing to think about is this. How about these non-breathers? When they get to the Urantia world, do you think they'll become breathers? I don't know.
They'll have to. I mean,
Well,
they'll have
they
to
may
get
have
a
to.
modified. They have to get the body
Yeah,
to exist on the mansion world.
but we don't know that for sure. They may get a physical form that's a little different because they're used to non-breathing, right? So we can't say that for sure, but you would assume that they would become non-breathers on the mansion worlds, right? So it's an interesting question. All right. Let's go on,
They would
James.
basically communicate by telepathy, since there would be no air for the transmission of sound, which is what we use to
Yeah.
communicate.
Well, it's interesting too. We don't know for sure when we get to the mansion worlds, we might all communicate with telepathy, right?
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure. So
But we'll be breathers.
we'll be
because
breathers and we'll be eating Urantia food, right? And
Right.
drinking Urantia water.
Mhm.
So you'd think of
Munch your food and water, and
Mhm.
no after effects.
yeah, and
Everything is absorbed.
that's right. Everything is absorbed, but you would think it would be that way because that's what we're used to doing on this planet, right? So I'm sure that they try to keep it as close to the world you come from as possible to make you comfortable, right? Because if you woke up on the mansion worlds and suddenly you didn't breathe anymore, it would be a problem, wouldn't it? I mean, you think about it.
So, Roger, Urantia bodies have lungs.
They have some sort of lung, some sort of exchange in gases, right?
I
So
wonder how Jesus was able to survive on our planet
because he was
after he ascended.
after he ascended, he was like everybody else. But when he came down in the Urantia form, he had what? The master physical controllers providing everything he needed, right? So they could modify the atmosphere immediately around him so that he could breathe with his Urantia body just like he would on the mansion worlds, right?
Mhm.
So if you think about it,
Otherwise it would have scared us.
would have scared us if he didn't, right? If he came back and didn't breathe. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Okay, I just read though.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Bill, would you take the next one? I'm sorry. Can't keep track of that.
Okay. There are so very few of the non-breather type of inhabited worlds in Satania because this more recently organized section of Urantia that still abounds in meteoric space bodies and worlds without a protective friction atmosphere are subject to incessant bombardment by these wanderers. Even some of the comets consist of meteor swarms, but as a rule, they are disrupted smaller bodies of matter.
Okay, this is an interesting paragraph because it's kind of hard to understand, right? First, it says there's so very few of the non-breather types, right? Because why? Because this is area of Norlaciac, or our local universe, right? That still abounds with meteoric space bodies. In other words, the worlds they create set it up for a situation where there has to be non-breather types of beings to inhabit these worlds. Okay. And when you first read that, you think of just the opposite, in other words, right? Because they're explaining why there's the non-breathing types here. And when you first read that, you think it's just the opposite of what they're doing. Okay, so that's what they're talking about here. So because there's a section of Norlaciac that has so many space bodies and meteors, that these beings on these planets actually have to protect themselves. And these types of beings may be the ones that have to stay underground all the time, you know? So they may not have an atmosphere they can breathe underground. So it makes perfect sense then. But when you first read it, it's kind of confusing, right?
Mhm.
All right. Gary, would you take the next one, please?
Okay, millions upon millions of meteorites enter the atmosphere of Urantia daily, coming in at the rate of almost 200 miles a second. On the non-breathing worlds, the advanced races must
do much
to protect themselves from meteor damage by making electrical installations which operate to consume or shunt the meteors. Great danger confronts them when they venture beyond these protected zones. These worlds are also subject to disastrous electrical storms of a nature unknown to Urantia. During such times of tremendous energy fluctuation, the inhabitants must take refuge in their special constructions of protective insulation.
Now think about this. Tesla discovered the way to pull the electrical charge out of the atmosphere, didn't he? Okay. That would really power the entire planet if they would have used his advice. But our smart government decided they didn't want us all to have free electricity. So that didn't happen. So what keeps us from being bombarded by these meteors? We have a protective atmosphere. And as they come into the atmosphere, most of them burn up on the way in. Now, the ones that don't burn up on the way in end up what? Coming on down to the planet. And that's why we have evidence of meteors all over the planet. Okay. But it's interesting that the world they're talking about here had to actually install something to do what our atmosphere does automatically, and that's to protect us from the meteors, right? And most of them probably live underground or live in these special structures that repulse the meteors, right? All right.
Roger?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure that one out, because to me it seems like while they were evolving through their primitive beings,
right,
they wouldn't have come up with this till hundreds of thousand years later.
Not. Probably
in their
not,
evolution.
Rodney. That's probably so. So
what
happened?
Probably had to stay in caves. I don't know.
Caves or underground, right? Probably so. But think about it this way, Rodney. That would constantly thin out the population of those races for hundreds of thousands of years. Think about
Big time.
Because if you're outside, you would have to learn to stay either in the caves or someplace protected, right? Because if you're outside, there's too much of a chance of you getting hit by a meteor and dying, right?
You know, what if the planet itself looks like a great big, just clustered with wormholes and, caves, etc., like that, where you wouldn't have to go outside. Just,
Yeah,
you know,
that may be the case, right,
You know.
Gary? Yeah, it very well. And it may be like, who was that guy who went up to the North Pole there?
Admiral Byrd.
bird.
Admiral
Admiral
Byrd,
Byrd, yeah.
right? It could be
Byrd.
something along that line that they actually developed their whole civilization in large areas underground, you know?
What's
So-
the name of that book that came out? I've read it, I don't, but it was a long time ago, where they actually had underground, they lived underground. It was orange.
Yeah, I tell you what, Admiral Byrd came back and swore that there was a whole civilization underground,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and whether that's true, I don't know, but
It's true. It's absolutely true.
yeah. They don't mention
They-
it in the book, but it could be true, you know, they could still be there, right?
The
Let me
next-
give you another thing to think about. What if the aliens we see zooming around, you know, I keep coming back to this because this is all speculation, right? I keep bringing this up. It's all speculation, but what if
You're gone.
some
You're
of-
cutting out, Roger.
Oh, am I? Sorry about that. Huh?
You're cutting out.
Oh, okay. Am I back yet? No, it's my internet connection. Shoot. Can y'all hear me at all? Anybody hear me?
No.
No.
You're sounding strange.
Yeah.
Diane
tell
might
him-
have to mute herself. Is Diane muted?
She
I
isn't.
can't see her
Unmute and
picture.
tell them that I've got a bad connection.
He has a bad connection right now. He's trying to rectify it.
Okay.
Listen, it's not coming back. It was unstable this afternoon. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and leave yours unmuted.
Okay,
Unmute dear.
it's unmuted.
Okay.
I think Roger was frozen.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he
it's
is,
my
yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me through Diane's?
Now you're coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I coming in?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's stop there tonight since I've got such a
Yeah.
bad
Now you are.
connection.
Your
Yeah,
picture is frozen, Roger.
yeah, I don't doubt it. All right,
Now you're okay.
am I okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane, would
You
you
just
close
popped
us
back
in
in.
prayer tonight? Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. Beloved Father, we give you thanks for the gathering. We give you thanks for Dr. Roger Paul for guiding us through it, and for each and every one of us who are open to understanding all beings that you have created, whether we're familiar with them or not, to learn to love without any condition all of your creation, Lord. We thank you for Jesus of Nazareth, Michael of Nebadon, and we ask that you continue to be our light and our guide. We thank you for everything that you've given us and that we are yet to receive. Amen.
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 And thank you
Amen.
for joining us. Please come see us again.
Thank
and
you.
Stop the